Welcome to this Women of Power Hour broadcast. Here today, I'm streaming from the UK as usual with New Thought Media Network, and I'm excited for our Women of Power super guest, power guest. I really need to say a power guest. She's here, waiting in the wings to come on, and Reverend Dr. Michelle Medrano is somebody who I really am inspired by with the work that she does in the world and who she is as a being and as a mother and as a teacher and as an authority, a spiritual leader, and somebody who really understands how to use these principles and spiritual teachings of New Thought and to then bring them and open them up, inviting so many people to learn from her and for them to get a great idea of who they are as love. And Reverend Michelle came onto the Cosmic Prayer Show 2 weeks ago, and it was just such a joy to be with her and to learn more about her ideas of prayer. And so today we're going to understand and learn a little bit more intimately about her and her life as a mother, as a leader, as a teacher, as a woman of power. And I'm just feeling so excited to be here with Reverend Dr. Michelle Medrano. Welcome to the Women of Power Hour. Welcome here today.
Reverend Laura. I'm happy to be here with you. What a joy.
This is great. Twice in 2 weeks.
Yes.
Yes. And I'm excited to be here with you and to share and to learn more about you and what you are doing in your life and how you came to this place and how you center into the power that you are and bring this to the world. It's beautiful. I followed you for a while. I mean, not in a stalky kind of way. I've watched you. But I know that as you are the co-senior leader and director of Mile High Church, that is such a blessing that you said yes to that and have taken that baton from Dr. Roger, and you're leading the leading light there. And how does that feel for you to do that? I'm just going to ask you that question.
Well, it's at the same time humbling and very exciting and aligning with my vision. It's kind of a funny story or interesting story. I started out here at Mile High Church as the receptionist answering the phones back in 1985.
Oh.
And so I was 21 years old, I guess. And so I got hired as in that job, and I loved working here. And kind of worked myself up in the organization into different roles, was going to school of ministry while I was working here, became a practitioner while I was working here. Our practitioners are spiritual guides and supporters for people in our communities, and then graduated from the school of ministry that opened here right about the time I finally stopped resisting. And so I went off to go do ministry elsewhere. I never in my wildest dreams grew up saying, okay, I want to someday lead this church. I want to be the minister of this church. I knew that my ministry was something that would unfold and that I would be guided along the way. And I was into serving in other communities. And then when Dr. Roger even invited me to come back to Mile High Church, there was no promise at that time that I would hold the role I'm in right now from me or from him, because I thought, gosh, when he, hopefully he won't retire for a very long time. And maybe by then I'll be close to retirement age and that wouldn't be a fit, but I'll just trust. So it's been a journey of trust. And so then when being offered the opportunity, it's humbling to look back and go, wow, look at the evolution that happened right here in this church, in this teaching. And at the same time, I could feel and I could allow myself to say yes along the way, because if things feel in alignment with the vision that I'm seeing for myself and that God is expressing through me, and I can feel very clearly inside of me most of the time when something's a yes or a no. And when it's a yes, I have learned to be obedient to that. And so I followed my yes here and stepped into this role. And it was challenging to let go of Dr. Roger when that time came, because he is such a brilliant light and has been the backbone of this church for so many years. He was the senior minister for 25 years, and he also had a history prior to that as an associate minister. So well loved, well admired, respected, an amazing teacher and speaker. And so that was daunting. And then right after that came the pandemic. And so keeping, as most spiritual leaders know, an organization, a church fed and nurtured through those times has presented its own challenges. So humbled and challenged at the same time. That's basically my answer. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. And what I heard, what really resonated within my heart, was this piece where you said that it was unfolding. You didn't have a plan, obviously, to be the senior minister at Mile High when you were answering phones as a telephone receptionist.
No.
And you had a vision, and you said it twice or three times in there that it was aligning. It has to align with your vision. Mm-hmm. It had to align with the vision. And as it was aligning, as you were feeling it in your heart and saying, yes, this is how it's unfolded. That's so powerful.
Yeah,
I
think sometimes, especially people who have a strong vision, the vision is about the role and the call for me, and the way that it will unfold in the world of form has as many varieties as there are in the universe. And so I always feel a little nervous for people who, for example, in our tradition and in our work that you and I are about, who say, I'm going to go and be a minister, and I want to be a minister of that church. To me, that is just as kind of silly in a way as if I said, hey, I want to fall in love and have a romantic relationship, and it better be with Reverend Laura. It's like, I don't get to attach myself to the person. I get to allow the vision of the love that I'm seeking to be expressed in the world to have its way with me and guide me to the right circumstances and person that I can feel that alignment with, rather than get attached to the outcome. And I watch a lot of people in our world get attached to, I want that church, or I want that job, or I want that company, or I want that. And that's kind of one of the things about our teaching that I get, that people are excited because they are told, and I agree, you can be as specific as you want. And I have found great value and spiritual depth in a broader explanation of that experience.
And so as we get to that place within ourselves that we know what we want, we know what we desire, we're really connected with the vision and the calling, and then the piece that I'm really feeling here is the one word, the F word, faith.
Yes.
Just having that faith that that it's okay to let go and let God, and not to have a strong outline of how it should be in order to make us feel fulfilled and happy, because
yes,
there are infinite possibilities.
Yes, and there's still that element of following the cues and following the doors that open in front of you, and following the invitations that show up, and go, if you were in a vision for your perfect romantic relationship, going out on dates, of course, there's the, hey, I do feel like I'd like to get to know that person better, or yes, I would like to interview with that church, or let me consider this option that someone has offered me. So it's not like we just, I love that teaching story that I told a couple of weeks ago about the person who's in a town, and the town is flooding, and so they climb into the church up to a second level, and some people come along with the boat and say, hey, get in the boat, get in the boat. And he says, no, 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 God will save me. And then he climbs to the top of the steeple as the water gets higher, and the helicopter comes, and he says, no, people say, get in the helicopter. No, no, God will save me. And then he drowns, and when he gets to the next side, he says to the universe, God, why didn't you save me? And the universe says, well, I sent you a boat and a helicopter. So we don't just sit around and pray all day, and we're not like monk-like. We are both, and we are always seeking to find that center, listen, and develop that listening relationship, and following the cues of the world of form that are co-created, that help us to consider the options and the possibilities in the directions that we want to go. But what most people do, unfortunately, is out of desperation and fear, gather as many options and possibilities as they can with this kind of energy. And that, to me, is where we sometimes get off track.
Yes, because when we're grabbing, there's a sense of desperation and kind of lack. It's I want, rather than I am being, and I'm allowing the experience to flow through, and something incredible is happening. It could show up as this, or it could show up as that, and I'm just going to have some fun. I think the play and curiosity, they're the two pieces, aren't they? To play with life and be curious, rather than pinning ourselves into how we think it should be, or they're the only options, few options. Yes.
I think that's a good way to put it, that patient curiosity. I would say that in my life, I feel like the one thing that I am the most confident about is that I have a call to ministry, to serve. I felt it at a very early age, and then it became very clear as a teenager. I know that what I came here to do and be has to do with ministry and serving in this way. But I'm also aware that there are many, many different ways that I could do that. And so my work is always to stay true to my call and trust that the ways will present themselves and show themselves. And I have pursued things, and I have gone for things. I've gone for churches that I didn't get. I've reached out for options that did not happen. I certainly haven't. By doing that doesn't mean that everything you do works out perfectly. But when it doesn't, then I know that it's not in alignment with my deepest vision of myself, and I can move on because I have a confidence that I have a place to go. If tomorrow someone came in here and said, we can no longer employ you at Mile High, I would be very sad. I would miss the people. I would miss the church. I would miss the work. But I have no doubt that my ministry has a place to serve in this world, and I would just have to find it. I would have to grieve. I'd have to feel that loss, but then I would move on because that is so anchored within me. And I wish that people could get not necessarily their purpose, although that's very helpful, but that at the core of us, there is a vision of joy and love and peace and centeredness in our lives, that when we come into relationship with that and nurture that the guidance then leads us forward into the conditions and circumstances that will most benefit us in expressing that vision. And I think sometimes it's hard. We don't teach people, we don't teach children, we don't teach young adults, we don't teach our society as a whole to hear that inner voice. And that is the most beautiful thing in the world.
Yes, and that inner voice, and I call it my divine assignment.
Yes.
So if I'm really honoring that, and even when I think I can't connect with that, and to take the time to vision and to contemplate and to have the space, rather than rushing, trying to fill the gaps. Do you think people, in general, I don't know whether it's women, just society in general is teaching and has taught us that we have to be busy. We have to fill out the seeming spaces with doing stuff and inventing ways to keep us away from what you're talking about, that connection.
I think that it may be that, and I think at the core of it, the message is you are most loved and respected if you are busy, productive, getting a lot done, doing all these things to support a whole bunch of other people. That seems to be the message. And what's lost in that is that's not where the most profound love and connection comes from. I think the most profound love and connection comes from nurturing that inner sense of love and connection, that eternal, limitless, loving light that is ever present and ever guiding us, so that we are living from the inside out and not the outside in. So I just think that we've gotten and given a message to, our parents gave it to us, we give it to our kids, grandparents gave it, that be productive. I mean, how many of us were chastised as children for sitting around and daydreaming or sitting quietly? I used to go out in my yard and sit quietly under the apple tree and just watch the tree in the sky. I never got chastised for it. But I think honestly that some of my grandparents might have come along and said, what are you doing sitting out there doing nothing? Get busy, get a chore done, do something productive, go do something helpful, clean your room, put your toys away, go help your mother. That there's this constant message about doing. And that's where we are most accepted, loved. And so it's become an addiction in some ways, that it's like, I need to be busy so that I can prove that I'm productive and loved and revered, rather than, yes, there are times in ministry, of course, when it's very, very busy, like right now, very, very busy. And I find great joy in that busyness, because the end product is going to be something that's deeply aligned with what I most want to give back to the world. So it's a happy kind of busy. It's not a stressful kind of busy.
And so our point of reference, and culturally and within society for hundreds of years, has been that the materialistic way of being, and that if we are creating and doing and kind of on a hamster wheel of get up, go and do it, come back, sleep for a bit, get up, go and do it, and then to have our bank balance is kind of a measure of success in that. Coming away from that and living a life where that doesn't become the determining factor of how we're loving ourselves or how we're accepting ourselves in the world. Do you believe that that's now more important than ever, that as women, that we tune into that more feminine way of being? And when I say feminine, I don't mean it from a sexual point of view. I just mean from a softer, more nurturing for ourselves, less competitive, more authentic. Do you think that now is the time, if we were to really listen to our hearts and live like this now, as you've just explained all of it, that we could actually, life could just completely transform for us in wonderful ways?
I do believe that. And I think that feminine quality that you're really pointed to, what I love about our teaching is Ernest Holmes distinguishing the feminine is the receptive nature of our being. Yes. And as you pointed out, no matter what gender identity you have, all of us have the more masculine attributes, which is the part of us that wants to go out and do, and the more feminine. And I think whatever your gender identity is, and especially I think as a woman, for me, I know as a busy woman, I since I know that life most, I can identify with that most, that I see other beings in my life striving to be so busy for motivation that is sometimes around money. You've pointed that out. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Sometimes around some identification or definition of success that they have for themselves, mm-hmm. or that they've taken on, without being more receptive to that place within us that says, what is mine to do? What is it that I'm here to give? that may or may not always be about our career, but maybe a value or a quality of being that we want to be sure we're being receptive to, and we're embracing fully, and we're accepting about ourselves, as a way to identify and provide a connecting point, so that if I go off to do some project, or I go off to take some job, or I go off to be in relationship with a partner, or with children or grandchildren or nieces or nephews, or anything that I go to do, if I can go back and say, oh my goodness, I'm having a really hard time, I can see that I'm not able to bring my inner gift of nurturing, or loving connection, or ministry, or whatever it might be, to that situation, then I need to reevaluate that. And I think what many
Mm.
of us are missing is we just keep doing what the world defines for us as a definition of success, and it's
Mm-hmm.
empty, and it's very unfulfilling, and then we feel empty and unfulfilled,
Right.
and then we want to blame the conditions of the world, which seems natural, but the real true issue might be that we just haven't listened clearly enough about what is in alignment for us to be doing in our lives. And so there you hear about people who then become addicted, who become very depressed, who sometimes even become suicidal, to those extremes. And most of that, I think, is born out of just not feeling empty, just feeling this life isn't worth living. And it's because we've lost our ability, I think, to really feel and sense and hear and be connected to that inner light. And that is a receptive feminine trait for sure.
Yes. And so it it feels, I know, I'm hearing, and what I'm feeling from this is a separation. When we're separate from our source, and when we're even separate from the values that we might have for ourselves, the intentions that we have for our lives, because it can be easy to put things on hold and say, oh no, I'll do that next year, or I'll do that in 6 months' time, because right now I need to do A, B, and C, and D because of all these reasons that actually may not be aligning with our hearts. And although I'm not suggesting to not be responsible in life at all, but how do we pull ourselves back to say, this is important though. What that assignment within me, that vision is important. And I hear it from a lot, many people where they put their dreams aside, put their vision even aside, because of being caught up in this world way of being right now. And how do we get ourselves back to that in the midst of our lives, which
Yeah.
sometimes are pretty hectic? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And I don't know that it's always a very easy answer. And I think the one thing I would say in response to what you just mentioned is that it's a perception that we're separated from our source, because we never
Yes.
can be, but we are habituated into a perception that we've lost our connection to source. And so I think what begins to happen is, as I've discovered this light within me, and I'm not always perfect at it. I certainly have times when I lose sight of it, or I lose my connection. And when I do, I know that I have work to do to get back to it. But it's as simple for me many times as saying, one of the reasons that I think I'm here is to bring that love that God is into not just my ministry. It's not enough just to say, well, when I'm at church and I'm speaking or I'm working with people, I'm my ministry. It also has to be a way of being, a quality of being that goes with me everywhere. So I just came from my house where my husband and I had to clean up our home and had to pick up the mess that had happened over the weekend as we were preparing for the holidays and all this. And it would have been very easy to do that with, I got to get this. And I really, I chose to do it after my morning practice, my spiritual practice, and got in touch with that love. And what I found is that as I was cleaning my home, that quality of love, as I was picking things up, was just ever so slightly present. And it made the task just a little more sweet and intentional, because I'm cleaning my little home. I'm picking up these things. I'm reminding myself of these gifts that I'm trying to get wrapped and get to the people that I love. And love was on board. Whereas in that space where we forget to do that, then what happens when we're dealing with our children is what gets on board is hurriedness and frustration and other things that can get in the way. And yes, of course, we can't be perfect about this, but I think what can begin to happen is that the more we can stay in touch and make it a priority, whether it's through spiritual practice or visioning or prayer work or Native American practices or shamanism or journaling. There's so many ways in the world right now to just have that deeper relationship with the true essence of self, that is God, my God presence, my unique contribution, and to be in touch with that and allow that to go forth with me into everyday tasks, I think makes even the mundane sweeter, and is a guiding presence that tells me, even sometimes, like, when I've done that, I can go, okay, now why do I feel that I need to do this thing every day? Is it really important or not? Or is there some voice out there that I'm kowtowing to that I think expects me to do this thing every day that I don't enjoy, or that I don't do well, or that doesn't feel in alignment with what my role is, or whatever? And it invites us, as you said earlier, to go into that peaceful curiosity about, is this really what I should be about? Is this who I want to be? Is this how I want to be? And it makes us more self-reflective. And some people maybe out there would say, oh, that's so selfish to be thinking about yourself all the time. But I think it's when we lose ourselves, when we lose our sense of our own heart and our own gifts that we can give to the world, and our own contribution from a quality of being standpoint, that we start to become very empty and disconnected. And that's when people are angry and rude and unhappy and harm their relationships and hurt their kids and damage their careers and harm their health and are disrespectful to their bodies. That's all. The genesis of that is all, I think, very simply but clearly in my mind at that core level.
So this is amazing. Reverend Michelle Medrano, you've just given a leadership lesson here, and I love it. It's like, and it's not leading as a leader in that formal sense of being a leader. This is how we lead our lives, how we be with ourselves, moment by moment, and just putting aside what other people think and feel about that, and owning that yes, it's really vital to reevaluate where we are from where we were even 6 months ago or a year ago, because as we're changing and growing and evolving and learning and sharing and conversing and knowing more about ourselves, we see ourselves from a different place, even if a few months later. And that's not selfish, is it? To turn within and say, well, actually, is this really me now? It was then, and now it isn't. And that, I think that's burnout, when we don't listen and we just keep on going, thinking this is how it should be. Yeah, I think you've made a really valid point there, because too many people, it's that I heard it a while ago, that most people on their deathbeds, when asked what is their main regret in life, they'll say, I didn't listen to my heart 20 years ago, and I needed to have done that, and I didn't do it.
Yes, absolutely. I would agree.
So, Reverend Michelle, what is your superpower?
My superpower. Well, it feels like when I am talking with someone who's very open and wanting to make a big shift in their lives, one of my superpowers is to have a dialogue of conversation that allows me to ask just the right questions and be a listening space that can help me kind of key in for them and help them discover what's at the core of that issue. I love that in our teaching, we teach our practitioners and ministers to find the spiritual truth behind things. What is this? Even the things that are unpleasant. What's the spiritual truth about that? And I think that practice over the years has become one of my superpowers. And I like having it. Now, it's interesting that while that is a superpower, I will say in all honesty, I can't always do it for myself. And so what I've also discovered is that when I'm in a place where I need help to discover what's at the core for me, I usually need help. And so I've realized that's why I have a prayer partner. I have practitioners and therapists and people that I work with ongoingly to help me continue to stay in touch with the things that might block me from my own seeing of myself clearly. So
thank you so much for saying that, because I think for so many, it can be, to ask for help or to ask for assistance or guidance can be seen as a weakness, and it isn't, is it? It's a part of our growth, and it's very courageous to ask and to receive guidance and help from another who can see us in a different, or from a different light, in a different way.
Yeah. After our conversation about prayer on your other show, I think I told you I was doing a message about prayer the following week. And I
Oh,
don't know
yes.
that we covered this, but I think it's one of the most interesting things that we humans do when we get to a desperate place and we say to the universe, I need help. Oh my God, whether we pray to God or whoever we pray, or whether we just feel this helplessness, I need help. And then boom, someone shows up to help us. And we say, oh, no, not that. No, not them. Oh, no, I can't accept that. Well, no, I need help, but no, not that. Like we are so, we're like this. Sometimes I was joking in my talk about we're like this with the universe. Like, I need help.
Yeah.
And the
It's so
reality is,
true.
the reality is I've never met a human being who, to live their best life, to be happy and fulfilled, didn't need help. Not just once. It's not enough to say, well, there was that one time I let people help me. No. Ongoingly, we need each other. And we need to lean into people who have walked the path that we are attempting to walk, and seek their counsel and their mentorship and their input, and even just seek help for people who can just listen to us if we need to whine and moan about how challenging it is. But as long as there are people who then will say, okay, I hear you, I got it. So now what are you going to do? Or how are you going to move forward?
Yes.
So I think we all need help. Absolutely.
We all need help, and recognizing that it will come in the weirdest of ways, the strangest of ways. And sometimes I need help, and then a video will pop up on YouTube, and it will be,
Yes,
actually, that's what I needed to hear right now.
Yes. And I do think the one thing that people don't realize is how much being willing and being receptive to being supported and helped is also in alignment with abundance in our life, because many of us
Yes.
would like greater abundance. And I'm not just talking money. That's nice to have. And of course, abundance includes money, but it also includes resources, opportunities, opening of doors, things happening easily and effortlessly, a huge core
Friendship.
element. Yeah. A huge core element of that is, am I willing and receptive to being helped and supported on my journey? And when I am, all that other stuff flows in addition, because that's how the universe is. The universe is standing at the ready, pouring all of this good through us, and we got our hand up. We're like, no. And you can't do it in one place and not think it's happening in other places. It's not like I refuse help from all my friends who would really love to support me right now in this challenge, but then God or something out there will make sure that I get my needs met. It's everything. It's that feminine receptivity to all help and support that comes my way, and not feeling embarrassed or ashamed. And
Shamed.
yeah, and I think some of it's from our school days. I mean, think about it. When we were little kids, if we need help in school, we might have been shamed for not being able to how to solve that problem without help. Well, you should know how to do that. You should know better. You don't need, we in our family, we don't accept help. We just go out and we get it done. We get it done, and that kind of energy versus we're all in this together. Let's figure out.
And as you're saying this, I'm really feeling into this here in the UK, where I was brought up in the Jewish religion, and you wouldn't necessarily, we didn't have practitioners, or if you were going to go to the rabbi or the rabbi's wife, it was, it's like, oh my gosh, why would you be going to have that kind of help? There must be something really drastic going on in your life. So, and I think it's really opened up and shifted now, especially in the last 20 years, where with counseling and therapy and practitioners and spiritual practitioners and healers and coaches, there are so many different ways that we can receive help professionally, that can really shift us and take away that whole layer of it ever having to be that it's because we've done it wrong or we haven't managed to succeed in our lives. Because I think a big piece of accepting help is there's a kind of belief that goes with that. Well, you've not managed to get your life together.
Right. Yeah. That's the shame part, right? Mm-hmm.
That's the shame part.
Yeah.
So how do you recharge? Because you have a busy life. And not only a busy life, you're leading a community, and it's a large community that you have there at Mile High Church. And that's a mental responsibility as well, and an emotional responsibility. How do you, Reverend Michelle, just not necessarily switch off, but allow yourself to be in that place of really closing the doors, turning off the phone, and just saying, this is my time now. I'm here for 8 days. Leave me alone. Does that ever happen?
Yes, I'm happy to say that it does. I've always been a rather an instead of an introvert, an extrovert. But I will say that during the pandemic, I love Matt Kahn, the speaker Matt Kahn, who says during the pandemic, it's like the universe sent all of us to our room. And so having spent all that time at home and working from home and staying at home, while I heard a lot of other people complaining about it, I was going, well, now this is interesting to be at home because I'm out and about so much and busy so much and going and going and going. And I learned that so my spiritual practice is very recharging for me most of the time. I'd say 90% of the time, but there's still some times when I go to meditate or do my practice where I'm caught up and I can't quite get into a relaxed state, for whatever reason. Maybe I can't quite escape my thoughts, or I'm not as successful as I would like. That does recharge me most of the time. And I do admit that being in my home, with my dogs and with my husband, and sometimes even by myself. I was a theater major in college, so I love entertainment. I love good movies, and I love good entertaining books that tell a great story. And I even sometimes love the shows that we get to binge watch these days. So I love that. I love music, so I go to theater, I go to live theater quite frequently. Occasional concerts, I don't find them as rejuvenating, but I do find that I am a better person. I'm a better wife. I'm a better minister. I'm a happier, more fulfilled version of myself if I do have a balance of downtime. And for me, it's unscheduled time for me just to go, what do I want to do right now? okay,
Right.
I want to watch that movie. Yeah, I've watched that movie 5,000 times before, but I'm going to watch it again because it just makes me happy, and I'm going to do that. Or
Yeah.
I'm going to play with my dogs and sit here and have fun with them. I do need that time. And when I don't get it, I do start to feel it in my bones and in my body. And I have said that lately it feels to me like a lot of people are struggling with this, because I look out at the world sometimes, and on the roads when people are driving, or in the stores, or in the Starbucks, or sometimes even at church, people sometimes act like little 4 and 5 year olds that just have meltdowns for reasons that I would not in the past have expected necessarily a pretty balanced adult to have a meltdown. And while I want to be judgy about that at times, what I recognize is I think that's a lot of us being still addicted to that busy stuff we were talking about earlier, and all that. So I think we all need to find our downtimes, but that's what works for me. And I do find ways to get it. There might be periods where it's harder, but I really try my best to get my downtime for sure.
And I think what you just said is really, really powerful, that we, even though we think that we have an emotional capacity in our daily lives, that it can be sometimes we're prodded and pushed into responding and reacting in a way that we might not if we are in that place of complete connection and knowing who and whose we are. And I suppose it's like remembering that, bringing that back into our daily routine, even if we can't have 3 days off, or
Right.
that we can build it into our daily lives,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
practice into our daily lives.
Yep, we can, and we can do staycations and vacations, and have a, even if it's just to pick a half a day and say this half day is just all mine, I'm going to do it. I think people feel guilty, and I know sometimes I felt guilty about it, but I'll tell you, I'd feel a lot more guilty if I treated people poorly than I would if I take a little time off.
Yes, that is so true. We all need to look at and to be better for
Yeah.
ourselves, to do our work in a much more productive way in the world. I've got into this routine of actually, I lately, it's like I'm really listening to my heart, and okay, if I want to get up a little bit later, I'll get up a little bit later. And if I want to
Yes.
go to bed later because I'm working, then it's like finding that flow rather than it being so structured.
Hmm. That's very good. Very good. I like that.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Takes a bit of, yeah, there's guilt that goes along with that, but so I'm
Yeah.
working through it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think sometimes one of the secrets of life is self-parenting, parenting yourself in ways that maybe your
Mm.
parents couldn't parent you, but to be able to negotiate with yourself and say, okay, I worked all weekend, and I'm going to take this morning to sleep in and do what I feel is good, and I'm going to take good care of myself, and that's okay because I worked all weekend long, and to say those things to ourselves versus, yeah, you worked all weekend long, but you still have much to do, and you can't afford to take time off. And if you take time off, just what will people think of you? And you won't get anything done. And to recognize that what I've learned is that when I do negotiate, even those few hours just to myself, then what I do for the rest of that day is 80% more fulfilling and actually probably more productive than some of those people who are going with no time off, no vacations. They think they're being productive, and they may be in terms of the time they're putting in, but in terms of the capacity
Hmm.
of their gifts and talents, the capacity of their brain, the capacity of their energy, so that they can work and contribute for a longer period of time in their life to the world, that is questionable. Versus those who will stop and say, okay, I need to take a little break. I need to go. I have a friend who just got a canoe, and she goes out on the lake near her house and just paddles around on her canoe. And for her, that's just so rejuvenating. And I love that about her, that she's taking that time in the mornings to go do that, or on the weekends. It just brings her such joy and peace. And I'm all for that. I will cheer anyone on who will do that for themselves, for sure.
Yes. Oh, wow. You heard it here from Reverend Michelle Medrano on the Women of Power Hour. Reverend Michelle is our guest today, our power guest, talking about power, what it means and what it doesn't mean, and how to tune into our own superpower. And thank you so much for being here, Reverend Michelle. I'm just so inspired by you, and I can see why you have a loving and a faithful community at Mile High Church who show up to be with you and to hear you and to gain from you your knowledge and your wisdom.
Oh, thank you.
It's just such a blessing that you're here. And I wonder, who are your inspirational women or teachers or people that have inspired you in your life, in your journey of becoming into the minister that you are right now, and the mother that you are, and the beautiful woman that you are? Who has inspired you?
Well, I have been blessed to have many, 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 many women on my journey. I would say that my mother is the primary one. I had a mother who had me when she was 17 years old and was in a very violent relationship with my father. He was very controlling and a rageaholic. And she had poor self-esteem as a young girl and had a really hard time with that. And I've watched her grow and do a lot of the things we've been talking about here today. She had to get help. She had to be courageous and step out of that TikTok violent life with my father, and she had to be willing to take her 3 children out of this place and move on, and she had to do her own personal work. And as she did, she transformed into a completely different person. So I'm someone who watched my own mother benefit and go from being one person to a completely different, international speaker, therapist, well-known Enneagram teacher, very wise woman, very centered woman, very healthy in every way woman. And so I was fortunate to see a mother who did that, and that contributed greatly to my ability to believe and have faith that anyone can change and grow and can transform their lives. So she's my number one hero.
Oh, wow. That what a story. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing. And to witness that and see it and be a part of her journey and her adventure through all of that, the pain.
Yes.
And that she ascended that pain and transcended the pain of all of that and worked through it and is now teaching others. Oh, no wonder you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is amazing. Yeah. I think for many, it takes a lot to, I'm going to speak personally, to do the mother work, or the mother, to have the opportunity to grow with our own mother healing and story is a really powerful thing to do, isn't it? For me, it has been a really powerful thing to do.
It is.
To
and
own that.
I will say that even in the years when it was more challenging for her to mother me, even in the way that I want and needed, that's where the other women in my life come into play. And I recognize in my own personal growth how blessed I've been, because I do think, the Old Testament says, honor thy father and mother. It doesn't say even love thy father and mother, because I think sometimes we persist in wanting a different parent than we have or we had, when all the while we have other women in our lives who have loved us like a mother and have given us exactly what we wanted and needed. But we keep thinking something's wrong with us or wrong with our life because our own mother couldn't give us that thing we wanted, and not seeing the blessing that, I couldn't get it from my mother, but that woman who was in my life was able to give me what I needed and was able to see me and was able to love me and nurture me. And yes, my own mother couldn't do it. And if we get off the attachment that it had to come from her or it doesn't count, then we can receive it. And when we receive it, then it blesses us.
So this goes back to the beginning of the conversation, to not outline our good and to allow it and to receive it from wherever it's coming without judging that it should be showing up in a certain way.
Yeah.
And I love that you've just, brought that right in back to the mother. And when for our mothers, if they couldn't do it or they were unable to do that to the degree that they could at the time, isn't it amazing that life steps in different ways?
Yeah.
Life steps in different ways to support through the situation.
Absolutely.
Such a blessing.
Yes.
Wow, Reverend Michelle, do you have one last word of wisdom for our viewers here who are watching, how they can maybe align more profoundly with their own superpower? I mean, you know, and just kind of own who they are or accept that beauty within themselves, even if they sometimes can't see it or don't want to see it?
I think for me, the one word I would say about that is just find some time every day, commit to even 5 minutes at the start to just stop throughout the day and focus on ourselves, do a little journaling or wake up and do morning pages that Julia Cameron used to teach about. Just sit down and write 3 pages by hand, do some meditation. Just allow yourself to think about yourself and to reflect upon yourself and your relationship with whatever it is that's inside of us, the higher self, the essence of us, the God self, our soul, whatever it is that you call it. There is an inner relationship that is being wanted to express itself. And all we need to do is just start out by giving it a little bit of time every day. And what I think people discover is that when you start giving a little bit of time towards that kind of reflection, it becomes so fulfilling and interesting. And that curiosity leads us into wanting more and more and more of it. And that can change our lives for the good.
Thank you, Reverend Michelle. Thank you for being here on the Women of Power Hour show and for sharing. And I look forward to you coming back again next year, 2023, and sharing again. If you like to, the invitation's always open for you.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you to, yes, thank you for saying yes and for being who you are and guiding so many in your amazing way. If I were near Mile High, I'd be there. I'd be there just to tune in. But and people can catch you on Mile High on the Sunday service online as well, can't they?
Yes, we do live stream, and we're going to be doing 6 wonderful candlelight services this week, and we'll be live streaming the 7 p.m. on the 23rd and the 24th. And they're beautiful services, great music, great wisdom, just lovely, lovely, lovely. So,
is it milehigh.net or .com?
milehighchurch.org.
Oh, of course.
Milehighchurch.org. And high is H-I, like hi. H-I, Mile High Church.
Okay. Oh. I'm just putting this in so that we can have a little banner on there.
Oh, great, great. Thank you.
So for anyone that's watching right now or at any time, you can check out the milehighchurch.org website and find out their live stream services, where you'll be able to see Reverend Michelle shining her light and sharing her message on Sundays and other days during the week. Thank you, Reverend Michelle. And thank you for everybody that's been watching and viewing. It's great to be here with you on the Women of Power Hour show. Until next time, love and blessings from me and from Reverend Dr. Michelle Medrano.